Welcome to Innovate, Disrupt, or Die, the podcast where innovation isn't just an ideal, it's a way of life. I'm your host and creator of the Innovate, Disrupt, or Die newsletter, Danny Nathan. Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Innovate, Disrupt, or Die, the podcast. This week, I have Dr. Neil Parikh with me. Neil, thank you so much for joining us.
Danny, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to a really interesting conversation. And not to beat around the bush, I'm just going to jump right in here. So, Neil, tell me a little bit about yourself. I usually say your role and your background, but given that you are a doctor and a medical professional, I'm curious to sort of understand more about where that collides with the world of innovation for you.
Sure. So yes. So as you said, Danny, my background is I'm a physician. I'm a gastroenterologist. I've been a gastroenterologist now for 10 years since training ended. And when I first joined the group I'm part of now, we were about 27, 30 physicians,
Wow,
25, 30 advanced practice providers, and we've gone larger. So over the past decade, we are now locally 90 gastroenterologists and 60 advanced practice providers. And along the way, we also joined with the national organization known as the GI Alliance, which is over 1,000 GI providers. And I bring this context up because as we got larger and larger, my role initially was educating the group, education.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what kind of led me down this path, I'm going to get to innovation, I swear, at some point.
No worries. Take your time.
Got me down this path was really education, quality, maintaining standards. And around that time when I was really getting into the flux of things, COVID happened. And that shifted me from in-person meetings to grand rounds, journal clubs to podcasting. And so that's why, Danny, like you, I became a podcaster where I figured it was a great way of educating my colleagues.
Gotcha.
Started initially just as an internal mechanism to teach each other. While we're driving to different hospitals, different offices, different endoscopy centers, we learn what's the latest and greatest in a specific disease state. Well, as you know, once you start podcasting, you start meeting different people from different spaces.
Right.
And I started interacting more with industry, startups, healthcare technology companies that were not necessarily delivering healthcare, but were part of the framework or infrastructure that we relied on.
Mm-hmm.
And I started having those conversations, learning that we as physicians are uniquely positioned to help guide what we want to see in day-to-day clinical practice.
Yeah.
But we're notoriously terrible at putting our 2 cents out there in a meaningful way. And what I mean by that is that we have the intellectual capital, but we often don't sit at the table where these decisions as to what is going to be made or created or what process or algorithm is being designed, we're not at the table. We end up being the end users on a repeated basis. And I went to my leadership and said, hey, I think we can provide increased, higher quality patient care if you support me in this journey where I start having conversations with non-clinicians who are involved in our space as to what product we want to see, whether it's device or medication or algorithm, what we think our patients would benefit most from. And that led me from education into innovation.
Interesting. All right. Lots of questions that sort of bubble up in there, Neil. So you started podcasting originally for a target market of 90 or so. I don't know where the growth in the org happened as related to the podcast, but for the people that you were working closely with. And I assume then that you were publishing the podcast publicly, and that sort of is what helped gain traction and awareness from outside that small group.
Exactly. Yeah, we were. It was my like friends and family plan, right? I would ask a partner, "Hey, you know about Barrett's esophagus? Can you look up the latest guidelines in Barrett's esophagus or inflammatory bowel disease? And can we meet on Zoom for 10, 15 minutes? I'm going to ask you questions as to what the rest of our colleagues need to know about this disease state, and then we put it on Apple, Spotify, and once it went there, we didn't control who was receiving that message."
Right. Did you publish to Apple and Spotify because you knew or had an inkling that that might happen? Or was it just the easiest way to put a podcast out there as opposed to like, I guess my underlying question, Neil, is were you trying to contain it to the 90 people or so and it just happened to gain attention? Or were you open to the idea that it would grow legs and sort of travel?
I had no problem with it growing legs and travel.
Okay.
Going into it, if that happened, that would be great. The original purpose was the reason we put it on Apple and Spotify was we wanted to then email out to our partners. This is the easiest way for them to listen to it when they were driving to work. Obviously, our marketing team got intrigued by this. Our patient recruitment, our physician recruitment teams were all like, this is good content. There was no extra cost to the rest of my firm on this.
Right.
And it kind of went from there.
Got it. Interesting. And the people in industry, as you put it, who then became sort of thought partners in this, were you reaching out to them or were they coming to you? Like, how did that sort of unfold in terms of allowing you to interact with people that were outside sort of the patient care side of medicine?
So early on, I had to start developing a good relationship with the local team. So let's talk about pharmaceutical industry, right? The pharmaceutical industry has usually local boots on the ground
Hmm.
representatives, medical science liaisons, and they would either be in our office settings, our hospital settings, our endoscopy centers, and a good rapport with them. Once I started realizing that I want to take the next level, early on, I would reach out to topics or processes that interested me.
Hmm.
You know, I will say I'll give LinkedIn credit for this, and I'm not a paid consultant for LinkedIn, but I will say by putting myself out there on LinkedIn, saying that, hey, I'm looking for this question or I'm trying to solve this problem,
Yeah.
you would get a lot of traction pretty quickly. And then I started realizing that the podcast would feed off of my innovation role, and the innovation
Uh-huh.
role would feed off the podcast, which means that soon companies would reach out to me saying, hey, we're in the GI space. We'd love to get our message out there. Can we be on your podcast?
Interesting.
So I would learn a lot about this new possible company. They'll get a chance to get their message out there. And I think we were learning that we could learn to kind of have a win-win where my listeners could learn about the latest technology. And then these companies that, I'm not talking about like these massive companies, but really early start companies could get some of their message out there as well.
You said that you went to folks on your team to kind of pitch the idea of you being in this innovation seat. How did they take it, and what does that end up meaning for you?
Yeah. So I early on joked that innovation is a great buzzword, right?
Yes.
It can mean anything or anything, anything or everything that I want it to mean. So yes, my title now is Chief Innovation Officer here for Connecticut GI, the 90 doc, 60 APP, 150 provider group in Connecticut. And I think my initial pitch to our CEO and chairman was, I'm having these conversations. All right. I believe there's going to be value to these conversations for our patients and our practice down the road.
Hmm.
I can't really quantify that value right now, but I believe that we will be able to solve some of our pain points by us getting ahead of these conversations rather than typically what we as physicians do is wait to what our project is given to us. Whether it's an electronic medical record, it's an endoscopic technology, it is a patient care pathway. Traditionally, I think physicians are followers. All right.
Okay.
We spend most of our 20s and 30s being told what to do, and we don't question it. I'll try to stay politically correct here, but we take more board exams and more certifications. Half the time, we don't even know what we're certifying for this organization again.
Right.
I've been practicing for GI for 15 years, and yet I'm still taking recertifications, despite the fact that you could ask my 1,000 patients that I think I know what I'm doing, but we just do
Right.
it, right? Med school, residency, fellowship, this exam, that exam, this rotation. You tell me where to go and I go there. Now my phone tells me where to go and I go there, right? And I think my pitch to my leadership was like, if we can become more leaders in this space, not only will our patients win, but our practice will win too. And the pitch there had to be a little bit of practice from a marketing angle too. Hey,
Hmm.
we can tell our competitors when we market that we have the latest technology, right? We are going to provide our patients with the latest and greatest because we are getting first hands on it.
Gotcha.
And then my second pitch to our leadership was, and this came more because I have a chip on my shoulder. I went to a very academic medical school, Mount Sinai, New York, great program. I went to Mount Sinai for residency. Again, very academic, research oriented. Went to fellowship as a research fellow. Was on a research grant. I did all this, and I felt like that was really led me to where I was. And then I got at a point where I was like, this is great, but why can't I influence more? Why can't I
Okay.
do more? And part of me believes, and I have a lot of friends in academic places, and I'm not taking away from any of that, and family in academic places. Sometimes I feel that the decisions that are made that affect every patient are made by people who are in academic institutions who are not necessarily seeing every patient.
Hmm.
I remember when I was in research, I was doing a lot of research and some clinical care. Whereas I feel like you need more clinicians to have seats at the table to dictate where our patients want us to be. And so I told my CEO and my chairman, I want to pitch to companies that before they go to Harvard, before they go to Yale, my alma mater, I want them to come to us. I want them to come to CTGI and say, CTGI can do this trial for you. And somehow I tricked them into making this happen.
Got it. So what does innovation mean in your world then, Neil? What is your edict? What is your goal? What do you aim to innovate?
Yeah, no, it's again, great buzzword, right? I can do whatever I want to. I think the basic premise, what I try to do are feasibility pilots when we talk about innovation. So we try to take it, and I say we, because there's a team of 8 gastroenterologists across the country now that work with me as
Okay.
part of the GI Alliance. So obviously I'm Chief Innovation Officer here in Connecticut. We're part of the GI Alliance, which is now the Specialty Alliance, which is over 1,000 gastroenterologists across the United States. And there's 8 of us who work together. And we usually take different verticals. Sometimes the verticals are being assigned to us. Our leadership says, hey, this is a problem, this is a problem. It always comes from a pain point. So we try to ask ourselves, what is disrupting your title, disrupting our patient flow the most right now? What is
Okay.
inhibiting us from providing the highest quality patient care today? And what solutions exist? It is crazy how many solutions exist that we typically do not implement at all,
Got it. So
right?
you're
The
seeing
number of solutions out there.
a lot of folks that are building solutions looking for problems effectively.
Exactly. So what we do is we take, and I can give you more specific examples too, but we take a pain point, we find a few solutions, and then we test them across the country in different, what we call SBUs, small business units across the country,
Hmm. Got it.
to see what works, what doesn't work. And then we try to learn from each other. Also, this way we don't duplicate the effort. If I'm doing something, Washington or Austin doesn't have to do it as well. We can learn from each other.
Got it. When you're focusing on these pain points, I know you said some of them are handed down, but where are they coming from? I mean, are these pain points for patients in terms of how they interact with you, in terms of how they get care? Is this pain points for physicians in terms of how they provide the care? All of the above? Like where are those surfacing from?
Yeah, I mean all of the above. So let's talk about patients. The biggest pain point for patients in GI in 2025 is access, right? Access to care. Get patients need to see us, and we don't seem to be able to meet the demand, right? Our supply doesn't
Wow.
always meet the
Okay.
demand, all right? Which means 4, 5, 6 month waits to get in, right? So how can we innovate to solve that problem? And we've looked at a variety of solutions. Are there virtual care platforms we can partner with?
Hmm.
Are there chronic care management platforms we can create? Are there ways to have kind of creative after hours cares using telemedicine to provide an almost GI driven urgent care? And we've incorporated some of these to see what works. Another big pain point has been for the GI practice side has been, or physician side or APP side, is documentation. And I mean, this is, I feel like burnout is more of a controversial term, but I'll say the burden of documentation is extreme. All right.
Hmm.
And I'm now in my 40s and I don't bring a laptop into my patient room. I just don't. All right. So I come in, if me and you, Danny, are talking, it's just me and you chatting, right?
Yeah.
I'm not typing. But what happens is as my memory gets less, less robust, I have to either on a piece of paper in between visits write down some notes, which is what I try to do, or I have to remember all the details.
Mm-hmm.
As you may have been familiar with, there are a variety of artificial intelligence-based virtual scribes now.
Yeah.
All right. They come in with me into the room, they listen, they document for me. Are they perfect? No. Are they very effective? Yes. I always tell people that is a great tool, but it's a support tool. As a
Mm-hmm.
physician, as an advanced practice provider, you are still responsible for the accuracy of that note, but it saves a ton of time.
Yes.
So take that step further. What else are we doing in my day to day that's redundant or repetitive? All right. So I do endoscopy and colonoscopy
Mm-hmm.
multiple days a week. I say the same things during the procedure, my findings. I dictate them, right? I dictate them live to my nursing staff, all right, who keeps track of them for their documentation. But then after the case is over, I have to go back, sit down at the computer in between patients and write them down again. Redundant, right?
Right.
Not only do I do then after I document there, the nurse then has to go document the specimens I took a third time. So we are saying the same finding, each finding, I'm repeating it 3 times, incorporate a scribe into there. And
Yeah.
again, it's not perfect, but the tools exist. Now, traditionally, if 10 years ago, you know what would happen to that tool? We would get that tool and we'd be given it to, and they'd be given to us. All right, this is the tool. This is what we have. Use it. We usually accept it, we adopt it, and we work with it. It's never perfect. We complain about it, but we use it. 2025, and I'm not taking credit for me just specifically, physicians are taking an active role in what that tool looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I'm not a information technology engineer, but that tool has been designed. Now we're beta testing it. I'm telling them, okay, I like this, I like that. And these companies are nimble. They're
Yeah.
willing to take feedback because they want the best product too.
Yeah.
So that's second point. But I mean, what I'd like to see in the future is more and more of that conversation happening. And not just for me, but all physician leaders and all advanced practice provider leaders need, because we kind of know what we want,
Mm-hmm.
right? In our workflow. We know what our patients are looking for. So rather than getting end products, let's be early on in the conversation.
Right. So that's really interesting, Neil, because as somebody who does develop digital products, what you're describing is the path that we tend to strive for. I would rather, as a product person, have an idea for a product, have the opportunity to gut check it with you, the customer, who will end up using it, and get your feedback on how to make it work better, perfectly, whatever for you, so that I end up in a world of people like you going, oh my God, I cannot live without that thing because it's that good. And it seems like your role then is largely focused on sort of finding the opportunities to make that happen when the person on the other side wants it to happen as well. I mean, it sounds like an enviable position in many ways.
100%, Danny. And I love how you said gut check because, obviously we're all about the gut here. So no, but Danny,
wasn't intentional, but fair.
100%. Your team has always wanted to do that, but traditionally you've gone to the same 3 or 4 large institutions across the country, and you've
Right.
gotten their input. And I'm not saying their input is right or wrong. You've gotten their input, and then say you get a key opinion leader, you get 2, maybe you get 3 or 4 people together, and you design a product, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying bring it to the people.
Yeah.
Bring it to the clinicians. Let them test it. So I'm not the only one beta testing these products. I'm saying we're going to test it across 1,000 providers in small sample sizes, then give you feedback, right? And I think that's the distinction where traditionally there's always, a few people, which obviously smaller companies or even larger companies they go to their go-to KOLs or go-to ad board members or go-to consultants. I'm trying to change the equation just a little bit, but you're absolutely right. When I speak with industry, I go to these conferences, it's not that I have to sell my position very hard.
Yeah. Got it. Neil, as a chief innovation officer in the spaces you've described, it sounds like a lot of your effort is focused on discovering and integrating new tools and helping those tools become what you want them to be. Is there also a flavor of developing new tools, or do you guys not really go into the kind of technology and tool development side of things?
I love the question. Up until this past Saturday, I would say
Mm,
our bandwidth has been a little limited to
sure.
develop as well, right? Where we were more or less evaluating vendors and tools being developed by a third party. All
Hmm.
right. We had a very exciting meeting this weekend where one of the conclusions was, especially nowadays, some of the stuff we can probably partner with the right people to create a product we want
Yeah.
as opposed to just vetting other people's products. It's a slippery slope though, Danny. I know what I can do and what I can't do, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's important to know your skill set and know what you don't know. So even my partners who get very excited and say, well, why don't we just make this or why don't we just do this? To some degree, it's possible, but to some degree, it's just better to collaborate. So the short answer is I do believe in 26, there are some certain verticals that I think we may create our own products. But my goal with even that product and that specific example is to still compare it with the vendors that are out there.
Sure. What is driving that shift, Neil? Are you all looking around and just as an example, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but it's the first thing that comes to mind. Are you looking around and going, oh, wow, AI is here. It can help us vibe code a new tool, for example, or at least a prototype of a new tool? Or are you all looking around, thinking about becoming more involved, but with the perspective of, if we really go down this route, we're going to end up building an internal technology team and a product team that can understand what it takes to build digital products I'm assuming digital, but maybe I'm wrong, but build new products and, get them out to market.
Yeah, Danny, I have not yet I want a vibe code just so I can say I've vibe coded at some point. So I'm going to
Sure.
do it at some point. But I think it's more the latter.
Okay.
I think if we go into this, again, the driving factor is somewhat we feel in specific spaces, the solutions, what we exactly want isn't there. And we kind of know what we want.
Hmm.
And in the past, we haven't had the bandwidth to put a team together. Okay.
Hmm.
I think now we're realizing that, and especially as we get larger, we have more strategic partners. Maybe we do start putting a team together and test it out, see what happens. But it would be a solution where it would be beyond vibe coding. It
Yeah.
would be it would be a solution where we have people like you and experts in what they do helping us figure out what exactly we want to do.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And to be clear, my expectation, Neil, was not that you were going to go vibe code
No, I
a
want to.
medical worthy tool,
I do. I
but
want to.
more, and you should. Let me
Yes.
be clear. You should, for no other reason, just to understand sort of what the
Yes.
world of what you're demanding is. But at the same time, I was kind of curious whether recent developments in technology and capability and the ability for less trained people to create technology was driving some of that near-term need or whether it's just sort of happenstance and timing. So really interesting there.
And I think there are definitely part of what drove the initial saying, "Hey, we can do this," is
Hmm.
exactly what you just said.
Okay.
So we're talking about agentic AI, for example, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of vendors who are presenting us with solutions that we think fit what we want.
Hmm.
But, and not that I've done it, but I have partners who say they've created their own AI agents with relative ease.
Hmm.
So they probably feel, because of what you described as the current environment where it's not as challenging to create a basic product or even an advanced product. And so
Right.
I think that's what's driving the be like, hey, maybe we can do this. But then my job is to say, sure, I love the enthusiasm, I love the motivation, but let's do this in a way where we still have the experts telling us what we're doing wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil, so forgive me, your company is roughly 150, 160, is that right? And then
In,
you've got the,
in clinicians, yeah, I want to say staff wise, oh, I don't know. I would say probably I would say about 500 people here
wow,
locally,
okay,
overall staff. So it's a decent sized company. Nationally, it's large.
got it. Okay, and what does the team that is focused on innovation look like? And forgive me, I don't mean to put you in a
Yeah.
difficult spot if the team is you, but like I'm trying to understand sort of what does the commitment to innovation from the executive level look like, and is that you sort of taking point on what's happening in the world and how you can leverage it, or do you have a team of people, for example, that are, I don't know, tasked with discovering the latest health tech startups, for example, and reaching out to them?
Definitely not just me. 100%, it's a team approach. So On a national level, we have myself and 7 other gastroenterologists
Hmm.
who are constantly listening to what their market is dictating and saying as to what, again, pain points are, what's difficult, what's challenging. So they're bringing stuff in that way. We also have all 1,000 members of the alliance who every so often say, "Oh, I came across this device. I came across this technology," or "Why can't we solve this problem?"
Right.
And then it comes back to us. And then what we try to do is the 8 of us will try to evaluate it. All right. We'll be like, okay, there's enough information out there. We can comment on it. And then we pass that comment over to what's called our medical advisory board, which is a quality checkpoint on our C
Okay.
suite level or our leadership level. They look at our comment or our feedback as, does it meet standard of care quality before it goes anywhere else? And if they agree it does, then it goes to our physician executive board, which talks about the contracting, the financial aspect of how putting this process in would change other elements, and how, again, the primary goal being, can we continue to provide high quality patient care?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So that's generally speaking how it works. I always look at our role as we can be kind of dreamers, right? The innovation
Hmm.
committee can be just full of dreamers. My job is to see, hey, this is a solution, this is a problem. Let's vet this solution. And I will say most of the things we do don't work. Most of our feasibility pilots or technologies don't pan out for a variety of reasons. Those that we feel like pan out before they're adopted by the large organization then have to go to the quality and physician leadership checkpoints.
Yeah. Got it. How do you navigate that with the rest of the executive team, Neil? I mean, what I hear you saying is we do a lot of work that ends up resulting in, this is not meant to be pejorative at all, and if you've listened to other episodes, you know I talk about failure a lot. But it sounds like a lot of the pilots that you run end up failing, for lack of better terms. And as an innovator and as somebody, at least for me, who has a background in innovation, I expect that. I know that innovation is wrought with failure and that those failures are how you learn and move forward. Have you had a difficult time sort of educating the rest of the C-suite on that process and the fact that failure is expected, or have they been relatively open to kind of that workflow and understanding that these things require trial and error and so on and so forth?
So, I mean, nationally, we have an incredible chief medical officer, a chief strategy officer, a chief executive officer, now a chief operating officer, who all seem to buy into the same concept that we need to continue to evolve. All right. And
Yeah.
I believe the buy-in is there. I'm not putting words on the people's mouths because we really want to be the preeminent organization.
Yeah.
And I guess it goes back to a little bit of marketing. I'm not saying cynically, but I think there's also, it sells to say, hey, we as a GI Alliance, we as a specialty alliance are not only providing the best patient care today, but we are driving what's going to provide the best patient care in the future. All right.
Sure. I mean, at some point, what you're talking about is establishing the value of the brand as leaders in the space.
Exactly. Now, I will say it's not always a win, right? It's hard to convince those who write my paychecks, right? And those, my own partners, right? I have to show my partners that them giving me time to not do clinical medicine
Yeah.
brings value to them, right?
Yes.
Financial value to them. And that is a challenge, all right? And I respect that. And I am very aware of the fact, and I tell them right up front, hey, our committee's going to do 10 things. 8 will likely fail. But all 8 of those, I have to probably put the same amount of effort as the 2 that succeeded.
Right.
Okay. And that's not always easy. And I think that's a challenge. The bigger challenge with that, though, isn't really even my practice. That's convincing hospital administration, healthcare systems of value of innovation, right? Because then you have to really tell these companies and these larger infrastructures, hey, we're going to test this out. This is not going to bring you money today or tomorrow or the next year. But 3 years later, it may put you in a position where you're going to provide the best patient care.
That's really interesting, Neil. Explain that process a little bit further for me, if you don't mind. Like, what role does a large hospital play, for example, in that process of innovation where I guess as you're describing your role, I'm envisioning most of that decision making happening within your organization. But what you're saying now is that you also see direct impact to the hospitals that you partner with, things like that. Help me understand sort of where the connective tissue is there and how your efforts impact partners like that.
So we rely heavily on our healthcare system, our hospital system partners, right? Most physicians, especially as us being proceduralists, a lot of
Hmm.
our advanced procedures happen in a hospital-based
Yeah.
system. That is beyond an entity that we own. Okay, as we're a large independent private practice, we
Yeah.
partner with these organizations that we rely on in mutually beneficial ways, and very, very, very happy and satisfied the way our partnership has been. All right.
Okay.
But once you get larger systems involved, right, there are now more boards, more meetings, and more people who don't do what you do, who you have to convince that what you're doing has value. And as you know, Danny, that's the challenge.
Sure. When would you bring an innovation opportunity to a partner hospital? I mean, this may be really brass tacks and I'm just not picturing it well, Neil, but is this, hi, I need you all to install a new speaker in the OR so that I can talk while I'm performing surgery and have it recorded somewhere? Or is this, I need you to integrate a new software solution into your internal systems for XY? Like, where does that moment hit?
So for me, the most successful strategy has been starting and driven by patient quality.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is I take where I think there is something out there that will improve the quality of our patient care. That's what I bring up with the leadership in the hospital level. Let's talk about computer aided detection of polyps. All right. This is where artificial intelligence driven image banks
Hmm.
recognize lesions in the colon to facilitate the endoscopist to identify and potentially see more lesions than before. All right.
Gotcha.
It's from a patient standpoint, there's no additional intervention or harm or risk. It is literally having an extra set of eyes during the procedure. All right.
Right.
That's what drives me to go to the hospital system saying, hey, this technology exists. Our numbers are good. This technology allows our numbers to get even better, to provide even better patient care. I have found that to be the most successful way of reaching the hospital level C suite and decision makers.
I understand that, Neil, and that makes perfect sense. I guess where I'm still struggling a little bit to follow is let's use your imaging technology example. I I guess to put it very clearly, like why do you need the hospital's permission? Is it because something new is being brought into their space? Or do they simply need sign off because it is technology that will be used in a procedure that happens within their walls?
Yeah. So for that specifically, when we do in our endoscopy centers, right, outpatient, out of the hospital,
Yeah.
we made the decision. We've had that. We've had the technology for almost 2 years now, right?
Okay.
As we try to bring into the hospital, we need hospital leadership to one, it's a capital expense. Two,
Got
they
it. So
need
they're
to,
paying for it.
yeah, two, they need to
Okay.
sign off on the security aspect, right? Once you have AI involved, you have now any sort of transfer of information, their information team needs to be signed off on it, right?
Yeah.
And then they have to look at it from their standpoint. They want to make sure that if they're going to provide it to one part of the hospital, the entire hospital gets it, right? So now you have different silos have to all agree that this is worth the next step.
Got it. Okay. I think what I was missing was the notion that the hospital would be paying for the
True.
technology,
Yeah.
that this isn't just, oh, Dr. Neil brings his laptop into the OR, which, whatever. But you get my point of like,
Yeah.
now I'm going to feed an image into my laptop, which I bring with me, and there's no additional anything for the hospital. But what you're saying is there is clearly installed technology that has a cost and an impact on their operations and things like that. So that makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay. Uh, Neil, in our introduction call, you mentioned that education, particularly within the medical space, is ripe for innovation. Help me understand that more clearly and sort of where and at what point do you think that education comes into play? Are you referring to education to augment medical training like med school or ongoing education like what you're describing with your podcast? Like, what does that mean?
No, I think we're in a point in society where our attention span is getting less and less and less. And because of that, our traditional way of educating has to change. The consumer in this example is everybody younger than me and you. All right. That includes our patients, but also our trainees, our fellows, and our young advanced practice providers, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to educate our patients and our trainees. The reason for this, while it's so critical right now, is that right now, if we look at, let's take the patient example. My patient, say, we diagnose a condition. Now they're going to wait a little bit to see me in the office, okay, to talk about the condition. What are we going to do in 2025 while we're waiting?
Okay.
I know what my 8 and 9-year-old do when they're waiting for anything. Nobody waits anymore, right?
Mhm.
We go online. We're going to ask ChatGPT, TikTok, Instagram, X, Alexa, whatever information technology is available to you as the consumer, meaning you, the patient.
Yeah.
You're going to ask them the question you're waiting to ask me. Okay. That information we need, and I'll tell you who we is in a second, but we need to make sure that information is medically vetted.
Got
And
it.
that's a hard ask.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it reminds me of the old adage: the best way to find out that you have cancer is to ask WebMD,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
obviously it'll tell you
And
whatever the worst
I
possible thing
fully
is.
encourage my patients to do Google searches because it usually leads to better questions. But I
Okay.
would love if you could do a Google search or TikTok. I don't know how to use TikTok yet. I'm working on that. I would love if you go to those platforms and there is medically vetted information there. There already is. I'm not saying there isn't, but there is probably still an imbalance of less medically vetted information more
Yes.
readily available than medically vetted information. Okay.
Yes. You have
So
to dig for and
you have to
know what
dig
you're
for it.
looking for.
And it's hard if you are not in the space, okay? If you're not Danny or Neil and you are going at this with a lay perspective, you may not know what to dig for.
Yeah.
Okay? So I believe right now in 2025 and beyond is what I've been preaching to a lot of the larger pharmaceutical players too, is that we meaning the physicians and advanced practice providers, the key opinion leaders in these spaces, need to partner with the industry and fill this information void. Okay. And the
Okay.
reason we need to partner is that I'll have the intellectual capital, right? I know what I think my patients want to know or need to know about a specific disease state or a specific drug. But I don't have the bandwidth to be on all these social media platforms
Yeah.
and keep updating information. That's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Okay. Most large pharmaceutical companies have digital media teams.
Hmm.
They're already putting content together. But traditionally, we've used this content for conferences or dinners or these platforms that people don't really know how to access. Let's go where the consumer is. And in 2025 and beyond, we're an on-demand generation. We
Yes.
DoorDash, we Uber, we Amazon Prime. We don't even wait for the regular Amazon anymore, right?
Right.
Like when you're looking through, if I see Prime versus non-Prime, I'm getting Prime, right?
Yeah.
So we're not going to wait for information. Can we get there? And I think this could really be a way to really educate everybody. And so going beyond patients, obviously, I'd rather my patient learn which herbal supplements work for their disease state
Hmm.
and then try them out and then tell them, Dr. Parikh, I tried this, and this because I read this, and this. It didn't work. Great. Okay. As opposed to my patient saying, I read this, I read that. I tried this, I saw this one YouTube video or this one Facebook forum, and I heard this may work, and I tried that. I don't think I'm feeling any better. We can get patients feeling better faster while they wait for us. And remember, it goes back to the access problem too. Patients are waiting. So how can we support the patients while they wait? And I think this is a way to educate them while they're waiting. And you can take a step further to fellows and APPs. We want to educate our trainees to the best of our ability. Most people want on-demand education. You think of a topic, you want an answer on the topic. Okay? My fellow's not
Hmm.
going to think of a disease state. No, let's say pancreatic cancer. They're not going to wait 4 months for the dinner program that I'm speaking on pancreatic cancer between now. They're
Right.
not going to, right? Why would you? You're going to go and get information, okay? And can we continue to provide that on-demand education for patients, providers, and trainees?
Interesting. And is this something that you've started pursuing, Neil? I mean, are you encouraging pharmaceutical companies, for example, to partner with you in this way to help make this information more readily available? And if so, are they receptive to it?
Yes, this has been a 6-month heater for me now,
Okay.
where I've been trying to get this message across, and it's still really early on. All right, I believe most of the innovative pharmaceutical companies believe this is the correct strategy. even the return on investment for the pharmaceutical company would be much greater here. Say they created a podcast or an on-demand video as opposed to putting together an entire in-person dinner program, okay, at some fancy restaurant. The challenge is that, and I mean this respectfully, the challenge is that we need to come up with a true legal compliance infrastructure to support this kind of on-demand education, because this is fast turnaround. Okay.
Yeah.
And I get that, right? It's easy for me to get on my podcast, say whatever I want to, because I'm representing myself. All right.
Right.
Part of the reason I've never partnered when I've been asked with larger organizations to become their podcast host is then I lose that freedom to say what I want to, when I want to. And I get it. When you represent one person from a large organization, like a pharmaceutical company, they're going to need whoever's speaking for them, somebody's going to have to proofread their work and double check their work. They're going to make sure that the video quality is good, that the optics is good, like the logo looks nice. But that's too late.
Yeah.
Right? That's too late. And it's one of those challenging things. We'll figure it out at some point. We're not there yet. But I think most large industry players realize the need to transform the way they're providing their messages. It's just a matter of how do we get there?
Absolutely fair. Neil, this is super interesting, and I really appreciate your sharing your perspective, especially kind of through the lens of the world of medicine. That's not one that I've had much opportunity to explore yet. Last couple of questions here. What advice do you have for somebody who might be in a field that is not traditionally innovation focused? So not in a business field, but a medical field. I've spoken to folks in construction, things like that. But for somebody who wants to integrate the ideals of innovation into a role where it's not obvious, what advice would you give them in terms of how to start out, how to approach their boss to sort of get buy-in for that? Like, how would you encourage somebody?
Yeah, I think the first step is to identify pain points.
Yeah.
Right? Identify what doesn't work for you on a day-to-day basis. What's not working for your colleagues? What do we complain about the most when we're grabbing lunch or at happy hour? What is upsetting us the most, right? And what I've noticed is you'll be pleasantly surprised in this day and age. Often solutions exist for those problems.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be exactly suited for what you're trying to do, but then you reach out to those companies with those solutions and say, hey, I know this is kind of far out there, but this is what we're trying to solve. We're trying to fix this problem on this field issue. You have this problem. Are you willing to work together?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. I've emailed articles through BBC, you see BBC News article, and I've emailed the person at the end there, be like, hey, I like this, but I kind of would want to see it this way. And I don't know, you'll fail a lot, but eventually you'll succeed.
Yeah, but that aligns exactly to what we sort of brought up earlier as well, Neil. I mean, you reach out to somebody who's got an adjacent solution, and effectively what you're doing is banging on their door saying, hi, would you like to open a new market opportunity here?
Yeah.
Like, that's a really good opportunity for whoever that is, provided that they're willing to take the time to listen, et cetera. Awesome. Neil, thank you so much. Where can people find you online? Where can they find your podcast? Where's the best place to connect with you? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that. So my podcast is called the Gut Doctor Podcast. It's on Spotify, Google, Apple, all your major players
in the notes. Yeah.
And me personally or professionally is on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, I will share both of those when we publish and make sure that people know where to find you. Awesome. Neil, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Danny, thank you so much. Have a great day.
That's it for today. Thanks for tuning in to Innovate, Disrupt, or Die, the podcast. Join us again for our next episode, and don't forget to subscribe at innovatedisruptordie.com. That's all, folks.